you have obviously made the case for the Khamzat fight. I feel like it's probably one of the biggest fights in the division.
Yeah, no, I mean, nobody who wants to see fucking two little go-fuckers go at it. You want to see a real fucking American fight this little Chechnyan fucking whore in American soil. This is a fight that needs to happen.
Yeah, I hate to spoil it for you. I don't think you're going to get on the White House card.
I mean, dude, who knows, dude? You know, I mean, no, dude. Maybe I got to go hang up at Epstein or some shit. I guarantee, dude. Chimaev would go to a fucking island. That motherfucker's going all day long. That dirty little fucker. Guy's just fucking is a clown, dude. I mean, you want to talk about a clown? You fought once in the middleweight division. You're moving up to fight an easier fight, and that's what he's doing. He's moving up to fight an easier fight. 205 division soft as fuck right now. So he's like, I'm gonna go fight Yuri. It's like you're picking a really easy path. You're not a double champ. You're not even you've won a belt once. Like, if the UFC grants that request, it'll be a fucking clown show, and I hope they don't.
Does it frustrate you at all, like hearing things like that, like seeing, you know, how long you fought in the middleweight division, and even a guy like Dricus that fought so many times and, you know, took on the best guys in the division?
Well, I mean, I hope the UFC tells him to go fuck himself. That's the right thing to do. I think, but again, it's like, who wants to see Yuri? Is Yuri going to be the belt, the next one find the belt? It's bullshit, dude. He doesn't deserve it. He's only fought for the belt once. The UFC should can it.
Strickland versus Chimaev is not going to be a competitive fight. This is going to be decided in the first round. Now, let me tell you why. I'm not suggesting for you that the fight ends in the first round. What I'm telling you is whoever wins that round is going to win all the rest of the rounds the exact same way. It is very difficult for me to imagine Chimaev can't go out and tackle somebody. Why? Well, because every Chimaev fight I've seen, he has gone out and tackled somebody quickly, repeatedly. But it's very hard for me to imagine that he's going to just throw Sean Strickland down. Nobody else has.
For example, elite grapplers. The analyst here outlines the massive implications of a potential Chimaev versus Strickland matchup, and what they're describing is genuinely insane. We're looking at a bout that could conclude almost immediately within those crucial opening moments. Like, there's no extended chess match, no gradual momentum building, just instant resolution in that initial phase. Now here's what makes this particularly compelling when considering why a fight featuring such contrasting yet predictable early patterns could face obstacles or potential delays. The UFC's matchmaking strategy operates with surgical precision. They absolutely never randomly assemble competitions. When one competitor's approach appears overwhelmingly superior or easily countered by their adversary, the ramifications on promotional value and career trajectories become enormous. Picture this situation momentarily. What happens when UFC executives examine Chimaev's grappling prowess and view it as this unconquerable barrier against Strickland? Or perhaps they interpret the dynamics completely differently. They could genuinely experience reluctance booking this encounter, serious hesitation really, because they're concerned about a lopsided showcase that might irreparably harm one of their premier talents beyond reasonable recovery. This rapid, conclusive forecast from the analyst demonstrates exactly how monumentally significant the consequences are for both competitors, making it a contest that could absolutely become subject to intense behind-the-scenes deliberation and possible strategic reconsideration by the organization's key executives.
I have seen Sean in the practice room. Just for example, in practice room stories are very, very relevant. Like, you'll see a different side of a guy in a practice room. When a guy goes into a fight, he's going to go with plan A. And he will never go to plan B, ever, unless plan A doesn't work. You have a guy like Khabib where people go, well, he's a one-dimensional fighter. Well, he was one-dimensional because that dimension always worked. In the practice room, Khabib can punch and he can kick and he can fight off his back. He can do all sorts of things. But you've never seen them because he was so dominant in fighting just for...
For instance, training facility dynamics matter tremendously. This glimpse into sparring session realities proves absolutely essential, particularly when evaluating the potential scrapping of a headline attraction like Chimaev against Strickland. And here's precisely why this carries such weight. The analyst emphasizes something mainstream audiences frequently overlook. What unfolds inside the octagon during fight night typically represents just a competitor's primary strategy, their preferred approach, while the training environment exposes their concealed dimensions, those abilities and techniques they maintain in reserve. For any bout to receive UFC approval, genuine confidence in competitive equilibrium must exist, authentic conviction that both athletes possess legitimate victory pathways. If, as the analyst suggests here, Strickland's sparring capabilities in wrestling far exceed what his octagon performances indicate, and Chimaev's grappling dominance proves equally formidable within training settings, it establishes this dangerous high-stakes situation that honestly creates anxiety for matchmakers. The UFC probably sits in boardrooms, evaluating the gamble of scheduling a fight where both competitors demonstrate Plan A superiority in completely different areas. One represents a grappling powerhouse, the other embodies striking excellence. The critical question they're likely confronting involves whether this generates excessive unpredictability, or potentially worse, an inevitable deadlock that fails to provide the explosive entertainment that supporters anticipate and invest substantial money experiencing. All these factors directly impact booking decisions and whether it materializes whatsoever.
I've never in the practice room seen somebody go throw Sean Strickland down and keep him there. Ever. Not for one single round, not ever. I've seen him taken down. I've seen him start on bottom. I have never seen him taken down and kept there. Adversely, I've never seen Chimaev not take somebody down and keep them there. I mean, do you see where this is interesting? Like, it's a very classic battle. And it's not the classic battle of striker versus grappler, but it is the classic battle of, can Chimaev, whose plan A is to take you down, work? And if it doesn't, can we necessarily count him out?
Actually, we're completely uncertain about that outcome, but clarity arrives within the opening round immediately, and that declaration encapsulates everything perfectly. This analysis starkly presents the fundamental challenge of a Chimaev versus Strickland encounter. You've created an immovable force confronting an unstoppable object, except reversed, which sounds paradoxical until properly examined. Strickland's impenetrable takedown defense clashing with Chimaev's flawless takedown execution establishes this winner-take-all scenario where something must inevitably break. From the UFC's viewpoint, this represents an extraordinarily captivating story that develops organically, the narrative type that drives pay-per-view sales without extensive marketing investment. However, here's the alternative perspective. Substantial risk exists that haunts executives constantly. When either fighter's assumed dominance within their specialty gets destroyed, like Chimaev failing the takedown or Strickland getting planted on his spine, it severely affects their future marketability and revenue generation. This fundamental unpredictability and possibility for a legacy-changing result, the variety that permanently alters fan perception and opponent respect, might encourage cautious methodology from matchmakers, or serious timing and circumstance reevaluation for such confrontations. Everything connects directly to conversations surrounding likely cancellation or delay, particularly when the risk-benefit calculation appears unfavorable for promotional strategic objectives and extended athlete development.
Islam had a difficult time taking Poirier down, as a more recent example. But then Islam showed us how good he was on his feet. He showed that he could really brawl when he needed to. He could put his chin down. He could put punches together. He could put combinations. He could finish with kicks. He could do damage. He could clinch and throw knees. Like, everybody has decided that Chimaev can't do that. But you have no evidence of that. You've just never seen him do that. We don't actually have
proof that he absolutely cannot avoid doing that. It exists within his fundamental nature. The Islam Makhachev comparison, who successfully expanded his arsenal when opponents challenged his grappling, illuminates the mystery surrounding Khamzat Chimaev in truly intriguing ways. The analyst identifies a crucial absence of proof concerning Chimaev's striking abilities, and listen carefully because they're not claiming he lacks striking entirely, but instead that we haven't witnessed it properly demonstrated in significant competition because his wrestling superiority proves so completely overwhelming. Each octagon appearance results in immediate takedowns before revealing his actual boxing capabilities. This uncertain element creates a major variable that might substantially affect fight negotiations and potentially cause cancellation or postponement of this entire contest. Consider the UFC's position here. If they suspect Chimaev must demonstrate his stand-up abilities before a premium matchup against a striking expert like Strickland, someone who will defend takedowns and enforce a boxing contest, they could legitimately postpone booking until ensuring Chimaev becomes a more complete, commercially viable asset before risking such a potentially career-defining and dangerous encounter that might reveal significant weaknesses on prominent stages.
that mask was Sean, because Sean used to train with him. Sean has felt him. There was a very classic moment. It was Don Fry and Ken Shamrock, and it was back in the Pride days. They're getting ready to fight. So they're at the weigh-in the day before, and they come together. And Don Fry, in his own mind and heart, was worried about the strength, the actual just physical strength of Ken Shamrock. He was worried about it. So Don started something with him at the weigh-in. He wanted...
And Ken accomplished exactly that, which demonstrates the entire concept magnificently. This portion shifts toward the essential psychological elements of combat that never appear on statistical comparisons. The mystique of unbeaten competitors and the intimidation they project. The analyst identifies something genuinely significant here. Sean Strickland, having previously trained with Khamzat, has experienced his physicality directly, potentially diminishing some of Chimaev's fearsome presence that causes other fighters to hesitate. The Don Fry versus Ken Shamrock story that follows perfectly demonstrates how understanding an opponent's physical attributes, even momentarily during practice, can dramatically influence confidence when entering the cage together. It resembles the distinction between fearing unknown phantoms and recognizing exactly what lurks nearby. This personal knowledge that Strickland possesses might prove decisive in the fight's psychology, completely transforming his mental preparation approach. For UFC matchmakers, this introduces additional complexity to an already intricate choice. A contest where one star's aura gets partially diminished through peer experience might not appeal as broadly to casual viewers unfamiliar with the background details, potentially triggering booking reconsideration, especially when promotional narratives become compromised, and the mystique that drives sales gets weakened before contracts receive signatures.
Was Ken to grab him in some fashion. Don wanted to feel that. One time the night before he got in the ring, Ken took the bait, he grabbed him, and that's where Don's confidence grew. Right there in that moment, every worry that he had about, man, this guy is so strong, and this guy is going to be too strong, and he felt him. And he said he was strong, but now I know how strong he is, and I don't have to worry about it. And I only share for you, like, it's a very real thing. It's why so many guys would
complete the encounter and pleaded for another opportunity, which reveals everything about his transformed confidence levels. The Don Fry narrative conclusion emphasizes the psychological advantage obtained from simply experiencing an opponent during training or competition, eliminating all uncertainty. Fry's renewed assurance, even facing a formidable, threatening competitor like Ken Shamrock, demonstrates the influence of replacing fear with understanding. For Strickland, who has already experienced Chimaev during practice sessions, the mental advantage means approaching combat not with fear of uncertainty or worry about potential outcomes, but with solid comprehension of his opponent's abilities, his power, his rhythm, his intensity. This balanced foundation, where Chimaev's intimidation factor might not exercise its typical psychological dominance that defeats opponents before competition begins, could create an intensely competitive, brutal encounter extending into championship rounds. However, and this requires understanding, the UFC frequently prefers developing undefeated records and intimidating reputations, carefully constructing these mythical figures. A matchup that potentially destroys one of these deliberately built images, particularly in non-title competition where championship justification doesn't exist for the gamble, might seem excessively dangerous for business considerations, potentially driving conversations about delaying or canceling the bout until timing becomes more strategically appropriate.
George St. Pierre did not believe that he could beat Matt Hughes. George goes out there and dominates Matt Hughes, but just I'm not on his level, and found a way. He just found a way to make sure Matt won, and then goes, give me a rematch. Now the mask is off. Now I know. Now I believe in himself. And it was a very one-sided affair, but this is a real thing when you can feel a guy. And I'm just sharing with you, like, whoever wins that first round, I don't know that it's as simple as can Sean stop the takedown. I think that Sean is a better kickboxer. I think that he's a
Significantly, the GSP versus Matt Hughes comparison provides an excellent demonstration of how perception gets completely destroyed through cage experience, reinforcing this revelation theme we've been exploring. GSP's transformation from insecurity and doubt to complete dominance following a single Hughes encounter emphasizes the enormous psychological effect of truly understanding your opponent, experiencing their strength, recognizing it's not supernatural. This connects directly to Strickland and Chimaev in ways that seem almost prophetic in similarity. Strickland's assurance, enhanced by previous training encounters with Khamzat, indicates he already possesses comparable mental advantages entering any potential fight. The analyst then emphasizes Strickland's superior kickboxing abilities, which reach absolutely elite levels, establishing the ultimate stylistic confrontation between striker and grappler. For the UFC's matchmaking division, such highly anticipated style versus style matchups excel at promotion, the content that markets itself effortlessly. But here lies the issue. When mental advantages already lean toward one direction, and clear victory or defeat paths get recognized by insiders before competition occurs, it might spark serious discussions about the fight's competitive balance and entertainment worth. This, combined with potential extended damage to either fighter's value and marketability, could significantly influence any conversations surrounding likely cancellation or strategic postponement until circumstances become more advantageous.
On for 25 minutes, out kickbox Israel Adesanya, who is a decorated, pure kickboxer. But we don't actually know. What can Chimaev do on his feet? There was also a stigma going around about Chimaev that he would get tired. That he would get tired and fade. But that stigma wasn't true. What we learned is Chimaev leaves everything out there. He's tired at the end of every fight because he gives everything. And if he's got to give that for 25 minutes or he's got to give that for 15, either way,
he'll exhaust everything completely, and that defines his fighting approach entirely. Sean Strickland's capacity to outclass a striking genius like Israel Adesanya, which he absolutely accomplished during their title fight, demonstrates his stand-up expertise and technical striking mastery, creating sharp contrast with Khamzat Chimaev's unproven and mostly invisible striking abilities. The analyst also examines the Chimaev fatigue theory circulating widely, explaining that it's not exhaustion traditionally understood, he simply depletes his energy reserves, which actually proves his complete aggression and unrelenting pressure that never diminishes. This creates a fascinating hypothetical situation that's honestly captivating to contemplate. What occurs when Chimaev's wrestling gets effectively neutralized, forcing him into stand-up warfare against a resilient, high-output striker who also empties his tank and refuses retreat? The UFC appreciates compelling stories that develop naturally, but competition with such elevated potential for lopsided exhaustion or surprising upsets that completely reshape divisional hierarchies could prove seriously troublesome when perceived risks of premature fighter burnout or exposure exist during their career development. It definitely weighs heavily in internal conversations about likely cancellation or strategic scheduling that safeguards their investment in both athletes.
But Strickland is also known for his pacing. Strickland is also known for his conditioning. I've never seen Strickland wilt. Even on fights that haven't gone Sean's way, it's not because he got tired and gave up, ever. But one of these guys is better than the other one, and one of these guys is going to have an ability and a skill set that is going to overwhelm his opponent. And we're going to know who that is. Not at the end of 25 minutes. We're going to know who that is at the end.
The concluding observation about Strickland's unshakable conditioning and complete refusal to surrender under any pressure provides a potent response to Chimaev's relentless assault and overwhelming approach. It describes a competitor who simply won't fracture regardless of fight development or cage adversity encountered. This inherent resilience and mental fortitude, combined with the analyst's firm conviction that one fighter's abilities will dominate the other and determine the winner before round one concludes, elevates the fight's extremely high stakes to almost unbearable levels. Such immediate, conclusive results, while obviously thrilling for supporters wanting definitive endings, can create strategic nightmares for UFC leadership and matchmakers. They invest enormously in developing stars gradually, carefully orchestrating their ranking ascension, and a swift, devastating loss for either Chimaev or Strickland could dramatically affect their future commercial appeal and sabotage those meticulously planned progressions they've outlined. This potential for instantaneous, definitive conclusions with all associated career and earning risks represents exactly the scenario that might prompt serious conversations about likely cancellation or postponement to protect their talent and preserve the long-term investments they've made, transforming these fighters into pay-per-view attractions.